You're shopping for a bottle. You spy two from the same distillery. Which one do you pick? How can you figure out the difference? Well, understanding how each of those bottles was matured, what type of cask was used during that maturation, that goes a long way in figuring out if that bottle is right for you. I'm Leanne, and this is Scotch on the Bayou, where we celebrate the wonders of Scotch whiskey and the flavor of life in Louisiana. And today we're going to talk about two different types of cask maturation from expressions from the same distillery. And that would be the Balvenie distillery. And the two expressions are the Balvenie American Oak 12-year and Doublewood 12-year. Located in the heart of Speyside, the Balvenie began its journey making Scotch whiskey in 1892 and is owned by the same family ever since, William Grant and Sons, who also own Glenfiddich. There's no doubt that the cask used during maturation has a tremendous influence in the way that whiskey tastes. Being able to work with cask and know how it's going to influence and change the new make into whiskey over those years is an absolute craft and art. For the Balvenie, that's been directed by malt master David Stewart for more than 50 years. And the Doublewood, that is a beautiful example of his double maturation. And now at the Balvenie, there's an upstart, an apprentice malt master named Kelsey McKechnie, and she is doing some really interesting things. She's a scientist turned whiskey maker, and her pet project was the American Oak. So let's get into what we do know about these before we get a taste. And that is they're both 43 ABV, alcohol by volume, and they're chill filtered because they're 43%. And odds are there's some E150 in there. I saw nothing in their packaging that really said that there was no coloring. The casking for these two expressions are really interesting. The American Oak, as you would guess, is American Oak with a twist. American Virgin Oak cask were made in Kentucky, and they were given a particular type of toasting to really bring out vanillins and different honey notes from that wood. They were sent over to Scotland, where they got an additional toasting by the cooperage there at the Balvenie, a more deeper char toast rather than a deep alligator char. Then aged stock from the Balvenie was put into those barrels for a couple of months, soaking up the toasty, warm, yummy goodness. The Doublewood got its name from two different maturations. So the first maturation was stock from ex-bourbon American Oak, and then a double maturation or additional time spent in European Oak sherry casks, hence the name Doublewood. So let me know in the comments below if you've tried either of these. There's another one that's pretty popular of the Balvenie, and that would be the Caribbean cask, which had been matured in rum cask and is a 14-year-old expression. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Balvenie expression is. Let's get into the tasting notes for the American Oak. Nice amber color. Again, maybe some E150 in there. Let's go for a nose. Definitely some vanillas and a little citrus. Sweetness more of a, maybe like a fresh fruit. Not too malty. Very pleasant. Let's go for a taste. It's 43%, so it's pretty light. It's pretty gentle. Sweetness is right there on the front. Getting more like a vanilla custard. There's a fruitiness there. So that falls from the nose, more like but it's more like a sugar sweet to me than a fruit sweet. It's got some new wood taste, if you will, but it's not overbearing. Like it doesn't taste like lumber of some oak and virgin oak expressions I've had. No smoke or anything like that, but there is almost like a charred sweetness, almost maybe even like a charred marshmallow kind of going on. There's a bit of a spice, mid-palate. And the finish is there. It's a little dry. It's lingering, warm, more of the ginger spice than cinnamon for me. This is really pretty tasty. It's definitely got that sweetness to it, custardy, and not really picking up on citrus that I got off the nose, but I am picking up the sweet from the nose. Very interesting. Yeah, the finish, it is kind of hanging. The sweetness is there, but it's more like a watered down honey. It's not as intense. Just really warmth, little dry, pretty nice. So in contrast to the American oak, the Doublewood, double maturation bourbon, then sherry. Again, a little darker than, a little more red tinge to the color. The nose I'm getting red fruits, berries, much maltier than the other one, and winey notes. I can tell this has got some sherry maturation to it. Okay, let's go for the taste. Right off, the mouthfeel is a little bit different. It's much more three-dimensional or rounder, if you will. I guess maybe even I would say kind of velvety. I know smooth and velvety are kind of overused when people describe things, but if that's the description, that's the description, you know? Very pleasing. Definitely pick up on the fruits, the red fruits, maybe a little honey in there. Some sweet vanilla, not as creamy as I got off of the American oak. This, I can definitely recognize the sherry influence from the maturation. And that's a point to make, where this was double matured. So it spent time in ex-bourbon cask, and then it spent a good bit of time in an ex-sherry cask, where the American oak spent most of its time in the former bourbon only cask, and then was finished for about 2 months in the American oak toasted casks. And I would imagine a little dab will do you on that, if you know what I mean. If you're in a virgin oak cask for very long, it's gonna probably soak up as much of those tannins and different chemicals within that wood to make it pull those flavors to where that whiskey would be a heck of a lot woodier, if you will, than it really is. I find it a slightly drier finish, which is odd. It might be because of the sherry. You know, it's not as long. It's medium, but very nice. Not much heat to it either. Has more continual sweetness. It's from Speyside, but it's not a sherry bomb. It's influenced by sherry with the second maturation, and probably a refill sherry cask as opposed to a first fill, where it would pick up a lot more of the sherry influence. It is delightful. It's a very nice dram, and it's gonna stay on my bar. The Doublewood is the Balvenie's core expression. It will be here for a long time. And because of that, and because of the volume that they create of this expression, it's a great choice for a bar or a restaurant. It's gonna be available. It's gonna be very easy to find in your local liquor store. The American Oak is part of a stories series that they've put out, and it may be a little harder to find. There's about $10–15 difference with this being about $75, 65-ish or so in my market for the Doublewood. The American oak is pretty light, somewhat gentle, but has a pretty robust taste to it, with the sweetness and vanilla, the kind of custardy creaminess of it. There is a wood influence there that you taste. It's not necessarily in the Doublewood. The Doublewood is more malty, I feel, than the American oak. The American oak, for me, in hot South Louisiana, this is almost a summer scotch. It's that much lighter in flavor to me. Well, back up. Not lighter in flavor, as in not as flavorful, but a lighter tasting spirit than the Doublewood. And I think that might be because I equate sherry with winter. Right? It can be kind of a mood thing too, you know? But the Balvenie American oak is quite tasty. Of these two, they're both gonna be on my bar. But I think I'm gonna find me a backup bottle of the American oak. I have suggested quite a few different Balvenies to folks who are wanting to get into Scotch. It is a great distillery to be a gateway whiskey. Whether it's either of these two or, as I mentioned, the Caribbean cask 14-year-old, those are wonderful spirits to try when you're starting to learn and get into Scotch whiskey. So when you're out looking for that next new bottle, take a moment, take your time. It's a good sizable purchase, right? Take your time to read the label, figure out what the maturation is, grab your cell phone, do a quick Google search, and see if your flavor profile matches up with what they're saying the cask maturation is. But also know, it's good to try something out of your norm. Let me know in the comments below what you think about either of these expressions. Have you had them? Which do you prefer? I'm not going to turn down either one of them. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and the bell for notifications so you'll know the next time we're doing a camp dram or another fun video on Scotch in the Bayou. And until then, sláinte y'all. I'm Leanne, and this is Scotch on the Bayou, where we explore the wonders of Scotch whiskey. Whiskey. I need some whiskey up in here. Okay.